Hi everyone, welcome back to another section of Texas government. Today we are going to be talking about political parties, and this will be political parties as it pertains to Texas government in particular. So to start off with, what exactly is a political party? In general, a political party is simply a broad-based coalition. So it is a group of interests whose primary purpose is to win elections. Remember, political parties are made up of a group of people who share the same interests. They get together and decide to form a party. The ultimate goal of political parties is to get their own people elected to office because the political parties want to control government. Now, we will speak of interest groups, but in this case, interest groups may affect policy, but they do not seek actual control of political office. Interest groups want to change a specific interest or policy. Now, we will find out a little bit further on that political parties have always been vital to government and to democracy in that political parties provide a link between the people and the government. Now, political parties serve several functions. The first one is to nominate and get candidates elected to office. The second is to simplify issues. The third is to mobilize voters. And the fourth is to run the government. Now, the American political party system tends to be very pragmatic. It is decentralized, and it is a two-party structure. Now, in a majority of states, political competition usually comes down to competition between the two major parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. Of course, when it comes to Texas government and political parties, we will see that the parties have taken long stretches of time in which they have each controlled Texas government. Now we will move on and speak first of pragmatism. Now, characteristics of American political parties, some of which are, despite the best efforts of Madison's criticism of political parties, or factions as he called them back in the day, still continue to exist. Now, the natural differences in the electorate create different goals for the government. Winning office is the primary objective of a political party, but it is their functions as political parties that keep them alive and viable. Now, the American political system tends to be pragmatic, decentralized, and non-ideological, with the two major parties competing for office. So we have pragmatism, decentralization, and of course a two-party system. So let's focus on pragmatism. Now, pragmatism is simply that the ideas that come out of political parties are judged on the basis of their practical results rather than on an ideological basis. What this means is that we are not going to shoot down an idea or discredit an idea because it came from the other party. The idea will be played out and see what the results are. We are only looking for the results, not who had the idea. Now, decentralization. With decentralization, we have to realize that American parties reflect the federal system. So the Republicans and the Democrats in Texas will reflect what the National Party is doing. And this is because of a decentralization of power between the various levels. What this means is that there are political parties at all levels of government: local, state, county, federal. They do not answer to one another, but they do work with one another. So as I have noted, there is a national level, a state level, a local level, which includes city, county, and district, and then of course grassroots, which is your own neighborhood. But the national level does not control any of the other levels. As you can see the chart, this is just a simplified way so you can see how the local, state, and national parties work together, but none of them answer to the others. So this is just a means of you to be able to see how the parties can function together. Now we have a two-party system. Realistically, this is because only two parties have a chance to win a nomination. In the United States, that would be the Democrats and the Republicans. There are, however, many parties to which one can belong. You have to realize that the U.S. does not have strong national parties. This means that each of the 50 state party organizations act independently. There is little interaction between the national and state officials. Remember, to represent somebody, we are talking about one individual from each area that is representing 160,000 people per district. Remember, this is for a federal representative, right? 160,000 people per district, or excuse me, a state rep, 160,000. So we are talking about one person representing a large number of people. So we have single member districts. We have one person that is representing one district, and you need a majority of votes to win, which means this is a 50% plus 1. Further, there are also third parties that do exist, but they find it very difficult to gain momentum. Now, historically, third parties may win some of the lower ballot races, such as the local races, but not usually the bigger state or federal races. And this is because single member districts discourage third parties from running and being elected. Remember, I keep saying money is what makes races. It allows people to run and have a better opportunity of being elected. Now, as I mentioned before, the state of Texas has a very strong one-party tradition. In the Republic of Texas, no political parties existed. So when Texas was a nation, there were no political parties. We were either pro-Houston or anti-Houston. The pro-Houston group wanted us to be friends with the Native Americans and be a part of the United States. The anti-Houston group wanted us to remain our own nation and move west. They wanted us to continue with manifest destiny. Now, after Texas becomes a state, we see a domination by Democrats. So this occurs from statehood until the 1990s. So from 1845 until 1990. So it is not until the 1870s that we see parties come into the state. After the Civil War, we see the Democratic Party take root, which would be in the early 1874. And they would dominate Texas government for over 100 years until the 1990s. Now, from 1874 until 1961, no Republican was elected to statewide office. Republican John Tower was elected to fill Lyndon B. Johnson's Senate seat, and this is because Lyndon B. Johnson had just been selected as the new vice president under John Kennedy. Remember, the federal government wanted us to become more progressive. It was the Northern Republican Party at the federal level. So we stayed this way. We were Democrats until the early 1990s. Now, let's just move back a little bit and mention 1906, which is the party primary reform. In 1906, the U.S. Supreme Court tells Texas that they cannot exclude African Americans from voting in primary elections. So what does Texas do? Texas turns around and tells the Democratic Party that they will now run the primary elections. This was so that the party could decide who can vote and not the actual state. The Democratic Party was considered a private organization and could circumvent the Supreme Court and the federal government. But as we saw later on, the Supreme Court actually ruled against the Democratic Party. Then we have to contend with the Great Depression. The Republicans were being largely associated with the Great Depression, whether they deserved the blame or not. We had a Republican president and Congress when the Depression hit. The people felt that the Democrats could better handle the issues of the Depression. This reinforced the Democratic era in Texas. So moving forward, we're going to speak about the ideological basis of fractionalism, the conservatives and the liberals. All this means is we're going to talk about the two sides, left and right. But first, ideology. We have to consider that ideology and parties are not interchangeable terms. Ideology, specifically political ideology, is your individual personal beliefs on how much government should be involved in your lives. So ideology is your personal beliefs. So first we'll speak about the conservatives. Now, the conservatives are usually associated with the Republican Party. Now, these statements that are below and that are shown here do not apply to all people. I want you to realize that the most important core value that the conservatives are always seeking is liberty. Liberty in the sense that there should be freedom from government control. So the conservatives are going to support a free market. They want unrestricted government control. They want the economic freedom to grow and create jobs. Secondly, they want to preserve moral values. They support government action that will preserve moral values. In Texas, they will support Christianity and the values that go along with a Christian life. The conservatives oppose programs and that will support redistribution of wealth. The conservatives are against programs that involve this distribution of wealth, which they see as welfare. They do not feel the need to support someone that is not working. and they specifically are not working to support someone else. Now, the libertarians are growing in popularity. In regards to monetary policy, the libertarians align with the conservative values. They don't want a big government or to spend too much money. They do not want government to be involved in regulation. However, on social policy, they are more likely to align with the liberals. Libertarians are not going to dictate a certain lifestyle so long as you take responsibility for yourself. Libertarians are very hands-off philosophy, and they are very supportive of individual liberty and personal responsibility. Now, when it comes to liberalism, the liberal ideologicals believe that the most important core value is equality. Liberalism wants to provide more opportunities for more people. We are not talking about equality that everybody is equal, but that equality in that everybody should have opportunities. Liberals support the belief that government should regulate the economy, protect the disadvantaged, uphold and protect civil rights and civil liberties, and of course promote equality. As I mentioned before, this is equality of opportunity. Now, of course, there are factions within the Democratic Party itself that resemble a two-party system. After the Civil War, we had factions that broke off within the Democratic Party, and even today we've had those same kind of fractions. We have conservative Democrats who are more moderate, and then we have the strict liberal Democrats. Now, the conservative Democrats controlled the party until the 1990s in the state of Texas. Republicans crossed over and supported conservative Democrats. These were the more moderate movers and shakers, and are those who were lost in the shuffle: moderate Republicans and conservative Democrats. So these moderate Republicans and the conservative Democrats were the ones that aligned. The liberal Democrats are those that we would consider the far left. So what we are talking about is that the Democrats that controlled government in the state of Texas from 1874 to the early 1990s are not the Democrats of today. They are what has become the Republican Party. The Democrats that were left over when the conservative Democrats and the moderate Republicans came together are the Democrats of today. They are what would be considered the far left. So conservative Democrats are the ones that controlled the party until 1978. They typically voted Democrat in state and local elections. However, they would vote Republican in national elections. Remember the whole process behind the Shivercrats and the Tidelands controversy. There is evidence of state party elitism. So the state party elite were comprised of conservative Democrats. They were the ones making the state rules and laws. They were the movers and shakers of the Democratic Party, and thus the ones in charge of the party. And of course, conservatives are more likely to vote. So this allowed the conservative Democrats to join forces with the moderate Republicans and rule Texas successfully for a very long time.